generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. It is June the 10th, 2026. Means we're 4 nights asleep. No, 3 nights asleep now, away from White House UFC 250. Pretty fired up about that. Why do I feel like there's more to that story than just a bunch of fighting? I don't know. We'll see. But guess what? Tonight is chapter 100 of Operation Gladio. So we hit the big Benjamin on Operation Gladio chapter. So very cool. It is also going to be part 5 of what is Permindex. And I look forward to this show. So with that, let's get to some of the amazing sponsors that keep this show alive, keep food on my table, keep the family fed. And when we come back, it's Gladio time.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, My Pillow mattresses and My Pillow mattress toppers as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets. Regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
Absolutely free. And speaking of things you need to order, how about some Operation Gladio merch? Come on, folks. It's the first link in any of the platforms that you're watching on. And with that, let me bring on the authority on Operation Gladio. Colonel, thank you for being with us here another night. Chapter 100 episodes of Gladio.
That's crazy.
Just like that.
Okay, so we're going to celebrate tonight. Everybody watching, you need to go get something to drink because we're going to have a drinking game tonight. And every time I mention CIA, you have to take a drink.
Gonna be some drunk people.
Go get a drink.
Oh, I can't wait to see what happened. The debauchery that's going to happen in the live chat. That ain't going to take long. I do want to say that it has been a lot of fun. Just awesome. You know, I was the last show, I was just doing a show with K Daily before I came on here, literally before I came on here. And I told him that one of the things that has just completely just shocked me and opened my eyes more than anything that I've learned the last couple of years is Operation Gladio. And here we are, episode 100. And I remember when we first talked, I was just like, you know, yeah, we could do a show or two. It might even go into a third episode. And we're just like, yeah, we can do that. We're cool. Here we are, 100 or 99 episodes later for episode 100. So it's been pretty awesome, Colonel. So thank you.
And I was telling somebody on one of the podcasts I was doing on someone else's show that had it not been for a very serendipitous, roundabout way of meeting Alpha, there probably would be 80% of the people that now know about Operation Gladio would have never known about it. Alpha works so hard behind the scenes of promoting and talking about Operation Gladio and getting me in front of people. And for that, I will be eternally grateful.
You're the Colonel.
And you're my Marine.
Speaking of
All right.
Marines, Secretary of War hanging out there at Guantanamo Bay today says, we're going to debrief and we're going to PT. I was like, man, like, I was fired up. I wanted to go put on my Ranger panties. Like I was like, I want a PT. Like, I want to get in on this. I was like, where's the recruiting office? And they're just like, son, we don't call you son no more. So
Yeah.
go on about go watch
You're
a Rambo
gonna be a
movie.
grandpa.
I am. As a matter of fact, baby shower here in 10 days. So I'm pretty excited.
You're gonna love it.
Did I tell you twins?
No.
Twins, boy and a girl.
Oh my gosh, Alpha, I'm so jealous. Oh, I don't even like you anymore.
Twins. I'm gonna be like this and like this. I
Oh
feel like,
my
yeah.
gosh.
So,
Congratulations.
thank you very much.
That's so awesome. I'm so jealous.
After she's giving me so many cool pictures and videos. So after the baby shower, because she still's got to tell some more people on his side of the family, things like that. So once I got the green light, I'll be posting a bunch of cool stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's the good news. Now we're going to talk about the bad news. All right. So hopefully we can close up Permindex because I have a lot of other stuff, but we may have to go another night. I'm going to go over my notes, and over the last 2 days, I have found some other stuff I didn't incorporate into the notes. So we're going to go over that if we have enough time. All right. So just in a review, post-World War II, Cold War starting, we have this, what appears to be this Swiss trade expedition company called Permindex, and it emerges as part of this entire entity that was started in world commerce with Wild Bill Donovan and a bunch of guys up in Bloomfield in Montreal. Now, keep in mind Montreal, because we're going to hear that several times during the show. Montreal, Canada. But Permindex itself was registered in Switzerland. And it is like the trade show piece of the world commerce, which was all the trade marts that were in the United States. And supposedly, it was supposed to be a promoter of international commerce. But if you remember, we talked about how post-World War II, it ended up being the vehicle, World Commerce Corporation, of all of the rebuilding of Europe. So these people are making a killing off of the war that just happened. Everybody's going to get, well, everybody in the oligarch is going to get their little piece of the rebuilding through this mechanism. And the people that were forward, i.e. in Europe, like Permindex, was going to be on the receiving end of that. So the Italian subsidiary, Centro Mondiali Commerciali, we're just going to call it CMC, functioned as a very interesting entity because it seemed to deal with money laundering, guns, and all kinds of other very nefarious things that we've become a lot more aware of. And the interesting part of CMC is it's in Rome, like where all of the Nazis were hanging out in the safe houses post World War II. Rome was like the hotbed at the time, and that's where this CMC is set up. So lots of investigations, lots of conversations were had about that, especially with the New Orleans District Attorney, Jim Garrison, that led the only real probe into the assassination of JFK. And what the conclusion he came away with is that CMC was an international assassination bureau, ran out of Rome. And what's really interesting about that is Bill Harvey is central to the CIA. First drink. When he gets basically fired from the Miami station in the early 1960s in disgrace, where does he go? He goes to Rome. Where is the CMC and Permindex operating out of? Rome. That's not a coincidence. Okay. And Jim.
Let me interrupt you to show you something real quick, because I went in to bring in Centro Mondoli Comercial Cali, CMC, as we would say. And of course, it automatically populates Permindex. I was like, okay, expected, given what we're talking about. Populates Clay Shaw, expected that. But there's one link that populates, and it's Clay Shaw's CMC, and it's Israeli, and you have to click it to get more information. And so I was like, this is interesting. It's from December 3rd of 2017. So I go to click it. Now, when I go to click it, what populates is, I'll read it to you guys real quick, is this community is not available. Please contact the community owner for assistance. And it does drop an IP number in there. But this is the link right here. I took a screenshot of it to share with you guys. So this is the link that I'm trying to click on. And it says December 3rd, 2017. It is a letter from Bloomfield to Abraham Friedman, a member of the Israeli Continental Oil letter. And that's all we get, because when you go click on the link, it's been scrubbed.
We're going to talk about Israel tonight because Israel is involved in this, which obviously is very interesting. Okay. The board of this entity is basically like a Cold War gallery. We have Clay Shaw, who is a CIA contract agent that was implicated by Garrison in the JFK plot. You have Ferenc Nagy, Nagy, who used to be a Hungarian premier, Hungary. And this is when Hungary was a very fascist entity. We have Jean Demenil, Demenil, who is an oil magnate. And we have this very interesting guy that we're going to talk a lot about tonight by the name of Paul Ragorowski. I'm just going to call him Rag because I don't know how to actually say his last name, but I'm going to spell it Raigorodsky. Some places had it spelled SKI. You won't find a lot about him originally, but you have to dig. So Paul Rag, whatever his name is a Dallas oil executive. He's living in Dallas in 1963. And he also is noted as a NATO liaison. NATO as in NATO secret armies. There's also a guy by the name of Prince Gutierrez de Spadafora. He was from Italy, and he is a Mussolini Nazi financier. There's also Giuseppe Zigliotti. He is also a fascist militia leader, like in a Gladio stay-behind militia kind of leader, among many others. These were not random people. They were key principles that the Dimenel, Nagy, and the Rag guy were documented leaders of a thing called the National Alliance of Russian Solidarists, NTS. If you do the research on NTS, you find out very quickly they were a CIA front. That's interesting. And they're all living in Dallas. That's weird. And they were all part of what it was referred to as the White Russians, as opposed to the Red Russians. So the White Russians were basically the people that were involved in the civil war within Russia during the Bolshevik Revolution. A lot of them came over, a lot of them came over during the Bolshevik Revolution, but even the ones that were in the Soviet Union who could get out during World War II with all of the boundary switching, a lot of them came out post-World War II as well. And very much into the whole quote-unquote anti-communist. A lot of them were affiliated with the World Anti-Communist League that we know is part of Operation Gladio, and the CIA as well. Permindex documented activities extended far beyond trade shows. The French intelligence, SDECE, which was part of their Gladio, there's good people in the SDECE as well as Gladio people. So when they exposed Gladio, they also, when France did their kind of deep dig after they tried to kill Charles de Gaulle over 30 times, a lot of the SDECE was exposed as being part of that apparatus. Several of them got purged. So the French intelligence traced $200,000 in Permindex funds that were paid to the French Gladio cell, OAS, for a 1962 assassination attempt on Charles de Gaulle. That's just one of over 30. And Permindex was intimately involved in transferring money to OAS. OAS had agents in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, which we're going to get into. They have already established that Permindex is a money laundering operation and paying for hits on heads of state. Okay? If I could jump up and down right now, I would. That's very, very important. Already established. The organization was subsequently banned from France, OAS, and Permindex. So Switzerland, after Permindex got banned from operating in France, Switzerland, which is where it's headquartered at, also banned them. That, and we talked about this a couple of shows ago, that required them then to locate the Permindex headquarters to Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, keep in mind, at the time, Johannesburg, South Africa is part of the British Empire. So is Montreal. Okay? Very, very important. They kept their offices in Montreal, even after they moved to Johannesburg. In an Italian newspaper, there was an expose that said Permindex was in the arms trafficking business. It also exposed that Permindex was intimately involved in heroin trafficking, just like the CIA. It also said in a French article that Permindex was money laundering for Gladio stay-behind networks. Permindex. And it also said that it was doing those things on behalf of the CIA. Permindex.
It's interesting you bring up Johannesburg and Montreal too, but Johannesburg, because someone who's been in the news a lot lately was born in Johannesburg. For those of you that don't know, major companies a part of is going to be launching their IPO. I'm talking about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Elon Musk from Johannesburg.
So in the summer of 1963, Permindex insiders allegedly convened at the exclusive Trial compound in Montego Bay, Jamaica, that we talked about last week. Reportedly, it was to finalize the plans for the November 22nd assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Garrison's investigation, detailed in his book in 1991, On the Trail of the Assassins, placed Clay Shaw at the New Orleans nexus with his trademark, with Bloomfield as the Montreal case officer, still linked to the FBI Division 5. Whitney Webb's book, One Nation Under Blackmail, which we've done on my show before, frames Permindex and the Rome subsidiary CMC as early intelligence crime fusion center, and they had ties to Tibor Rosenbaum International Credit Bank, which was a Mossad-linked financier, and all of that is tied to the P2 Masonic Lodge in Italy and Lucio Gelli, who was the Grand Poobah Mason of the P2 Masonic Lodge. So they were using Tibor Rosenbaum's International Credit Bank as part of the money laundering operation that also involved the Vatican. So I think we've come to the conclusion that Permindex serves as an intelligence front directly connected to Operation Gladio, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, and the CIA. So it also operated as part of a pipeline of all of the people post-World War II that was coming over and being screened by the counterintelligence corps of the Army into the CIA to be used as agents for Operation Gladio and worldwide assassination teams. So you have people like Ukrainian, Belarusians, the White Russians, all of these that are part of this. And of course, they used Reinhard Gehlen's organization as part of that screening mechanism. So shortly after the war, declassified documents confirmed negotiations between the CIA and Gehlen apparatus and notorious Ukrainian Nazi Stefan Bandera's network, which is part of this entire operation, because Bandera's Nazis were part of the stay behind unit that they were putting back into Ukraine via Germany. Reception camps in Germany became sorting stations for all of these people. Travelers from the Eastern Bloc were vetted for how useful they would be as future assets, saboteurs, informants, double agents by the Gehlen organization and the soon-to-be CIA. It was the OSS at the time. The Galen organization's mandate, per Alan Dulles and James Critchfield. James Critchfield is a very interesting guy. He was actually like Alan Dulles's right-hand man from 1945 to 48 in fielding and kind of ferreting out all of these people. If you look him up, what you would find is that during World War II, he was part of the Western Front that went through Northern Africa and then up through Italy. So that kind of makes sense. He joins the CIA at its basic creation and worked directly with Reinhard Galen. As a matter of fact, Critchfield was so important. He was basically Alan Dulles's handler for Reinhard Galen during the Galen organization, just before it becomes the West Germany's BND. He basically served as his handler. They become fast friends, him and Galen. He also was involved in the overthrow of the Iraqi government. He was involved in and the reason why they did that is, and that was the installation of the Ba'ath Party, which led to Saddam Hussein, by the way. So he is very, very important to this story.
It says that he was former CIA has stated that he being Critchfield was working with Archie Roosevelt Jr. on a separate plan to instigate a military coup against Qasem, which was rendered moot by the latter's assassination. And Archie was the one involved with the Iran.
Yes, but it wasn't rendered mute. They made sure that happened. They were part of it. That's just a Reader's Digest version of it.
Agreed.
He was intimately involved in the overthrow of the government that led to the Ba'ath regime in Iraq. So Critchfield is very, very important to the story. And he was part of the cadre that helped stand up Operation Gladio throughout Europe from 1945 to 1948. He's the one that was working with Otto Skorzeny. He's very important to this story. Okay. So let me get back to my thing. Galen, of course, we know, was Hitler's right-hand man on the Eastern Front, and that he buried all of the Russian documents, used them as his bargaining chip, and worked directly with Frank Wisner in the Office of Policy Coordination, which over time becomes the operations division of the CIA, to recruit these people out of these camps to be part of what will eventually be Operation Gladio. So the Tsarist, the White Russians, would serve as part of Galen's organization. They would also be brought into the CIA, and then they would also be distributed around the United States, like in Dallas, Texas, as we're going to see. While all of this was going on, there was quite a bit of activity with the KGB too, because they were consistently trying to infiltrate both the White Russian organization that was a CIA front and Galen's organization. They were basically running through all of this. So let me get down here. Part of this also from the Galen organization, we find that entire security apparatus was very dynamic at the time. There is a guy by the name of Max Clark, and we're going to come back to him in a second. But we also find him in Dallas. it's really interesting how many people, like a lot of the lawyers and judges in Nuremberg was from Dallas, Texas. It's really weird how Dallas, Texas plays such a critical role in all of this. The ideological core of these networks were basically fascist. And one of the guys, Prince Anastasi von Siski is a white Russian immigrant who founded what was called the All Russian Fascist Organization. He also set up the Russian National Revolutionary Labor and Workers Peasant Party, a fascist. They really loved fascism. He was convicted in 1942 for spying for Nazi Germany. His vision was an Aryan Fourth Empire. He wanted the Romanovs restored in Russia, and basically to get rid of the Bolsheviks and basically allow a Hitler-like kind of fascist government throughout all of the Soviet Union. He also ran a white fascist Bible school on Sundays. I didn't know there was such a thing. And he had close ties to the Russian Orthodox Church in exile, like in New York. And there, the Reverend, and he has an even weirder name. His last name is Tzuglevich. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. He also was a big fan of the Romanov family, and he acted as an envoy to what became known as the Max Network, and that's that Max Clark guy. He was associated with the Order of the Russian National Fascist Patriotic Knights. That's quite a mouthful. That was founded in Nice in France. And supposedly these guys had some ties to the Romanov family. But what's interesting about him is he also was inducted into the Knights of Malta, which we find all of the CIA guys in. And he was also tied to the Sovereign Order of the St. John of Jerusalem. These circles, what's so important about, I mention them, is because the Knights of Malta and the Sovereign Order of St. John of Jerusalem had a lot of World Anti-Communist League members. It's another one of those secret society kind of things that lumps all of these people in. So, what happens in Europe during this time? Well, the Radio Free Europe, which is a CIA front too, gets stood up. And who does the CIA hire for Radio Free Europe? Well, the whole purpose of it is to propagandize the Soviet Union. So they're going to hire a whole bunch of ex-Nazis that are basically the fascists from the Eastern European countries like Hungary, Romania, and Russia. It just so happens that George de Morgenshield, Oswald's handler in Dallas, and his brother Dmitry, both were involved in Radio Free Europe, which means George de Morgenshield's ties to the CIA goes back to post-World War II. And his brother. Dmitry was a founder of Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. George, of course, comes to the United States. He's a fascist. He's also ex-Russian, but he had no problem getting U.S. government security clearances when he comes to the United States, which is really interesting. And of course, he's plopped down in the middle of Texas. He also was involved in a thing called the Texas Crusade for Freedom. That's another entity that was linked directly to the CIA. Who else do we find there? Clint Murchison and H.L. Hunt, which were oil magnates. H.L. Hunt is from the Hunt family, the same Hunt family that now owns the Kansas City Chiefs and that we hear so much talked about in Dallas oil discussions. So De Morgan Shield has his anti-communist fascist credentials, which puts him right in the middle of this JFK sewer pit in Dallas, because of course JFK is making overtures to the Soviet Union to defuse and not have this animosity. And so all of these fascists running around all of these circles hates JFK because he's actually trying to pursue peace. Kind of like what's going on right now, right? With Trump. He's trying to pursue peace, and all of these warmongering crazies criticize every single overture that he makes for peace, because you're not allowed to have peace because they don't make any money if everything is peaceful. What'd you find?
Oh, it's saving this. It goes to what you're saying right. This comes from it's conspiracydossiers.com. On April 3rd, 1950, the NCFE changed its name to the National Committee for Free Europe. Incorporated in May 1950, the NCFE board agreed to adopt Freedom Bell as their symbol. On July 4th, 1950, Radio Free Europe began broadcasting into Eastern Europe. And this article is riddled with all kinds of names that we've talked about before as well.
Yep. Okay.
And the word CIA is in there a lot, folks. So I'm being nice to you guys.
We don't want to lose you too soon. Training for this whole Gladio infrastructure began at camps like Oberammergauern in Germany, which hosted a major U.S. intelligence school from 1946 onward. And if you guys remember a long time ago, I mean, like back at episode 20, we talked about the sites in Germany. We also talked about them when I came across that Detachment A, how they set up all of these training camps throughout Germany. This one at Oberammergauern is one of them, where the Nazis and the CIA and all of their anti-communist immigrants were indoctrinated. This is the birth of Gladio here. Otto Skorzeny was part of the training school. There were commanders like General Sykes and a Nazi SS General Burkhardt. And who do we find as an interpreter running around all of this camp? Because, right, they don't all speak. All of our guys doesn't speak German, and we've got all these German Nazis running around training our guys. So who's doing the interpreting here? And we had a lot of Russians there. You would be shocked to find out that Henry Kissinger was one of the translators. And General Lucius Clay is part of this. There ends up being up to 5,000 special forces trained, and many Eastern European exiles supplied to this training via Reinhard Gehlen. They received training in guerrilla warfare. Some of them was even so good at guerrilla warfare that they were picked up and moved to Fort Bragg, which is the creation of the Green Berets. Near Garmisch, there was a paperclip reception center that was set up there, as well as a spy hub where Werner von Braun was brought through. There were also SS generals like Hans Kammler, and that is the place where Klaus Barbie was actually interrogated, questioned, and rat-lined out to Bolivia in Latin America. So these facilities operationalized Bloodstone recruits. That was an Operation Bloodstone, for sabotage missions into Eastern Europe. The Dallas Nexus reveals astonishing security clearance exceptions. Max Clark, the guy we mentioned earlier, was an industrial security officer at General Dynamics, which had covert security black programs at General Dynamics approved by the CIA, one of which was Project Rock, tied to the U-2 spy plane manufacturing. And so you have all of these fascist people that are going through these training camps that were dispersed into America, into the defense contractors. And his wife, Max Clark's wife, his name was Virginia, she aided Oswald in 1962 getting a job. Clark himself vouched for that Paul Ragorski, whatever his name is, the Permindex director. So this Max Clark is critical to this story as well, because he's the one that gives this Paul Ragorski guy his stamp of approval, and he's intimately involved in Permindex. Ragorski testified to the Warren Commission ties linking a family by the name of Skorbatov, which was a white Russian aristocratic family. And those people were directly associated with intelligence as well. So that's really weird that you have all of these people in all of these intelligence networks. So we weren't supposed to be giving any clearances to anybody from Russia or anybody from Eastern Europe, but all of these people end up with security clearances and working at defense contractors and handling things like the U-2 and Cuba overflights of the U-2. And where did we find Oswald? In the U-2 program in Japan. And he just so happens to be in Russia when the U-2 that Powers is flying gets shot down. That's really weird. And then all of these people back here are all meeting in Dallas, and they all have these same ties. Okay. Reinhard Galen's organization is obviously part and parcel of this entire story. Galen is obviously critical to the story, and kind of serves as a backbone for where all of these people end up, which of course Galen and Dulles is inseparable. So they're plotting, training, and then all of these people are dispersed into the United States, kind of all gathering back to those critical things happening in West Germany. Okay. Let's see. One of the other things that I wanted to mention is we talked about Henry Kissinger being at Ammergauern. He also was responsible for a guy by the name of Fritz Kramer. He also was a Nazi. And interestingly enough, he was a big deal later on. When Kissinger was Nixon's national security advisor, and then he moves over to Secretary of State, Kissinger founded the Trilateral Commission out of one of Rockefeller's Bilderberg meetings. And of course, he was alongside Brzezinski. Again, you have all of these people from over there running our country. It's weird. So these pieces connect through Permindex board at Trial and the White Russian, as well as Galen's organization, the World Anti-Communist League, and Dallas Military Industrial Complex, all of which were threatened by JFK. So they're all working in the same ecosystem. Now,
check out this capture real quick of this regarding Fritz Kramer. Let me make it a little bit bigger since it's kind of hard to read. Best available copy. Looks like it says Strempel Herbert von, Germany. This is April 26, 1944. Subject was in Lisbon for a short stay, especially assigned to American section of the Foreign Press Ministry of Foreign Affairs in order to ascertain political situation in U.S. and trend of fall elections. Contacted Fritz Kramer for this purpose.
Well, you know what's interesting about him being in Lisbon? Where's Lisbon?
I need you to phone a friend for this one.
Portugal.
Oh.
Portugal's where Agenter Press was, which was one of the hotbeds of Operation Gladio with Yves Garin Serac and a lot of the other assassins.
Well, and this that last part, just I don't want to leave people there. It's interesting too. Says Chicago Daily News Dispatch Burn, December 14th, 1944. Subject is an official of the, it looks like it says Goebbels Press Bureau in Berlin, and is reported to have spent a few days recently in Switzerland and to have contacted Dr. Kroll, although the latter insists he has all contacts with the Nazis.
So that's even more interesting. Where did it say that he contacted them? In Switzerland? Switzerland, where Permindex is set up and where Alan Dulles is hanging out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So let's get into this George de Morgenschild and the Bush family a little bit. So George de Morgenschild is a very interesting guy. We told you that Alan Dulles has known George since he was a kid, 10 years old. They met in Azerbaijan. George's dad was selling the Baku oil field for the Nobel family in Sweden. So they've known each other their whole life. So it's not at all surprising that George and his brother is contacted by Alan Dulles to set up Radio Free Europe, right? Because they've known each other their whole life. And that's a piece that a lot of people miss. George de Morgenschild is basically an asset for Alan Dulles. And then he gets assigned to be Oswald's handler in Dallas. People need to understand how important that was. George de Morgenschild isn't just some random Russian that happens to be living in Dallas. He's known Alan Dulles his whole life. Okay. In 1950, it appears that George H.W. Bush had a former roommate by the name of Eddie Hooker. Eddie Hooker and Poppy Bush launched an oil investment firm, and de Morgenschild was involved in it. They had offices in New York, Denver, and Abilene. And at this time, obviously, Texas was in the middle of a huge boom. Poppy Bush was working there as a trainee for Neil Mallon's, Mallon's Dresser Industry. Dresser Industry is a huge corporation. And you know that Bush named one of his sons Neil?
I didn't know.
Did you know? Yeah, so there's Jeb Bush, George Bush, and Neil Bush. So it's not just Neil Bush. It's Neil Malin Bush. He is actually named after Neil Malin of Dresser Industries.
Very interesting.
Yes. And where is Dresser Industries? In Dallas, Texas. So Dallas or Malin relocates Dresser Industries in 1950. At the time, Dallas was still a relatively modest city. It would not have been a place they went. It wasn't Dallas as we know it today. But they all seemed to just congregate in Dallas. So
I find this little highlighted part important too. Dresser merged with its main rival Halliburton.
yes, that's the same company.
It's cheap.
Dick Cheney, all of them. Yes. So, with help from House Speaker Sam Rayburn and Senate Majority Leader at the time, Lyndon B. Johnson, Dallas had attracted several of these defense contractors. And who would it be that benefited from JFK assassination? Oh, that would be LBJ. All one big little happy family. By the early 50s, Dallas had a crap ton of Russian immigrants. They were drawn there a lot because of the oil industry and the viewpoint of the people. They set up their own new church there. And that was kind of a meeting place for them. And George de Morgenshield was part of it, as was a guy who had the nickname of Godfather in the immigrant community of Dallas. And that's our Paul Ragorsky guy. He had been a cavalry officer and fought against the Red Army after the Bolshevik victory. Ragorsky came to the United States with the help of the Red Cross and the YMCA. I'm just going to leave that there. Red Cross and the YMCA. And we know that these people have used both the Red Cross and the YMCA repeatedly for this bullshit. Okay? Yeah. That's who helped this guy get to Dallas. So he doesn't just come to Dallas and hang out. He marries one of the wealthiest families in Dallas. His new father-in-law was the guy that set up the Dallas Federal Reserve Bank. Paul Ragorsky marries the daughter of the man that set up the Federal Reserve Bank in Dallas. So he was in on the whole oil thing and has a Russian military background. And he also hung out with the Bush family, the Dresser family. And depending on what you read, I read several articles that said he actually served in the OSS too.
How do you spell his last name? I'm struggling to find him.
You won't find him unless you look on Yandex. You will not find anything on normal websites for him.
Yeah, okay, that makes...
Yeah, he's like hidden. And he's crucial to the whole story. You want me to spell it for you again?
Yeah, give me the spelling for it one more time.
Raigorodsky.
Okay.
And what's even more interesting is he's a good friend of J. Edgar Hoover, the guy that covered up JFK's assassination. And he is a director on an entity called the Tolstoy Foundation. The Tolstoy Foundation is a CIA front that was set up to funnel government money to assist Russian exiles. So he's got CIA written all over him.
Well, thank goodness that we got a President Trump. Because if you go to the archives.gov, since they've released a lot of stuff on JFK, and you search his name, you will find right there, 1920 or September 23rd, 1952, Mr. Paul M. Ragorsky. Classification secret. Current status redacted. Opening criteria indefinite. So you're wondering why you can't find nothing on this guy. They straight classified it and said indefinite. How long, sir? Forever.
Yeah, and you can literally find nothing on him unless you go to Yandex. That's how crazy it is. And I'm so glad I found the index. We would not know half of what we know if we weren't looking on there. Okay. Another guy. So this Ragorsky guy is the single he was called the godfather of the Russian immigrant community. Okay. He was like the big guy, which is really weird if he's that big and important in Dallas at this time, why you can't find anything on him. And he was very, very involved in a lot of different things, to include knowing J. Edgar Hoover. The second most influential person in the Russian immigrant community was George Bolke. It's Bouhe. He was an oil industry accountant to a lot of the big oil manufacturers. He's the guy that knew all of the ins and outs of oil tax type things. He, in the 1920s, was from Petrograd. And he had worked with the American Relief Administration. And for those of you who've not gone back that far, because I've told you there were intelligence organizations way before the CIA ever set up. The American Relief Administration was one such spy organization. It was a spy cover charity that provided food aid to the Russian population. It was set up by American executives in various Russian cities. It was the CIA before the CIA.
Well, check out this little gem. Not to interrupt you, but I think you will find this one fascinating, Colonel. This is also from the declassification from our government. Let me zoom in, make it a little easier for everybody to read. This is August 22nd, 1953. And it says, synopsis, I'm just going to read the first few sentences here. Paul Mark Ragorsky, believed to be the subject of inquiry. Ragorsky investigated under European Recovery Program during August and September of 1952, and then residing at Dallas, Texas. Born August 25th, 1898 in Russia and naturalized April 28, 1921, entered the United States May 20th, 1920, served in Russian and United States armies. This guy screams Gladio. Screams Gladio.
Yeah. Now you know why you can't find him anywhere. So this Bohe's guy, his supervisors was so impressed that they urged him to come to the United States. He snuck out of the Soviet Union into Finland in the middle of the night and somehow made it all the way to New York with no money because his travel was paid for by the executives that were funding this spy organization called the American Relief Administration. And so where does he go to work? Now, here's this guy. He just snuck out of the Soviet Union through Finland, somehow shows up on the streets of New York City. You would think he started as a cab driver or something, right? And then just, no, he went to work for Rockefeller's Chase Bank in New York City. And just mysteriously ends up in Dallas too. And he didn't go to just any place in Dallas, Texas. He went to a petroleum geology company that George de Morganshire works at, called De Goyler and McNulton, and ends up this McNulton guy is a board member of Dresser Industries too. Very small world, isn't it?
It is. That this document mentions what you said too. Close personal friend of Senator Lyndon Johnson of Texas.
Yeah. So you get the guy who's president and you want to be president to go to Dallas, Texas into a den of thieves and assassins, and then presto, changeo, you're president. They're all linked. So both of these top two Russian immigrants are both good friends with George de Morganshire, and they're in contact with him all the time. They're hanging out at all of the same parties. The kids, Bush Sr.'s kids, all call this Neil Mallon guy Uncle Neil. That's how close friends they were. And in 1951, Mallon launched the Dallas Council on World Affairs. And just so that you guys know, that, yes, too, was associated with the CIA. Under this entity called the Dallas Council on World Affairs, you have all kinds of these people, both the oil industry, the White Russians, they're all hanging out together. And lo and behold, we find some of the German scientists that were brought over here in Operation Paperclip that goes to work at Bell Industries in Dallas, Texas, too, hanging out with all these people. And these paperclip Nazi scientists that hung out in Dallas, at Bell especially, I forget the name, and it might be in here, the Ruth and whatever her husband, the Paynes, that where Oswald's wife ends up hanging out. She lives with this couple. Where did he work? Oh, he worked for Bell too. That has all the Nazi scientists working there. So none of this was random, is the point I'm trying to make. So George moved to Dallas in 1952, and he goes to work for that same organization as a geologist. And he joins the Dallas Petroleum Club and becomes a regular member of the Council on World Affairs meeting. Again, CIA adjacent. Many of these people in both of these, the Dallas Petroleum Club and the Council on World Affairs, are kind of overlapping membership. And one was the Texas chapter of Crusade for Freedom, which was a private conduit for laundering money to quote unquote freedom fighters. Again, a CIA front. Crusade for Freedom. The roots of Crusade for Freedom go back to 1949 to Senator Herbert Lehman of New York. And yes, that is the son of the founder of Lehman Brothers. So they established the National Committee for a Free Europe, Inc., which was backed by Secretary of State Dean Atkinson. And Dean Atkinson is a Yale graduate and Scroll and Key Secret Society member. And all of this, this also links in General Lucius Clay, who was part, and this is the funny thing about this. General Lucius Clay was the guy in Europe that was the recipient of the world commerce. So he was the guy that was part of the Marshall Plan and all this other stuff. So he was the guy sending the requirements for what they needed to rebuild West Germany, where the World Commerce Corporation with Wild Bill Donovan and that Bloomfield guy is funneling all of this stuff into him. And then Lucius Clay ends up in Dallas too. It's all one big circle. So one of the first events this organization, the Crusade for Freedom, set up was a nationwide radio address by General Dwight D. Eisenhower urging Americans to support it. And the money was going to Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty, again, a CIA front. Eisenhower's involved in it. General Lucius Clay is involved in it. And so is all of the people in Dallas. It was basically one of the, and again, it hired all of these former Nazis as collaborators. So at the direction of Washington, these entities were laundering U.S. government funds, including money from the CIA, for use by Eastern Europe insurgents. This looks just like every other CIA money laundering operation that I've come across, including the Iran-Contra, which again was ran by President Bush Sr. when he was vice president during the Reagan administration. This is just a precursor to it. Everything that I just explained to you, instead of being ran out of Miami like Iran-Contra was, this is being ran out of Dallas. It's the exact same thing. So George de Morgenschild and his brother Dmitri was all involved in it as well. Members of the Texas Crusade for Freedom was the who's who of Texans connected to the assassination of JFK. In addition to Neil Mallon, who again, Bush Sr.'s son's named after, Ragorsky, McNulton, Everett DeGoyler, and Dallas Mayor Earl Cabell were involved in it. And who's Earl Cabell? Cabell. He has a very famous brother. Guess where his famous brother, Charles Cabell, works? Oh, he was Allen Dulles' deputy director of the CIA. Allen Dulles' deputy was the mayor of Dallas when JFK was assassinated. So if you haven't heard it, if you're not drunk enough, because I've said the CIA often enough tonight, you should be hearing in the back of your mind, it's a small world after all. Because I'm hearing it. Okay, and I'm just drinking coconut water. Okay, one more for you.
If any of you are drinking Tom Brady's new water, don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Another member of this cabal was a guy by the name of D. Harold Byrd. D. Harold Byrd, who owned a building downtown Dallas that would be what? What building did he own in downtown Dallas? The Texas School Book Depository. Byrd, B-Y-R-D. And of course, E.M. Ted Daly, who was the publisher of the Dallas Morning News, and Daly Plaza is named after him. He also was a big critic of JFK's. So, Byrd is a very interesting guy. He's related to the Admiral Byrd that did the expedition down to Antarctica.
Yeah, Antarctica.
He's also related to the Senator Byrd. the crazy guy that was the white nationalist Ku Klux Klan guy. Oh, and by the way, I haven't even got to that part. All these people are KKK members too. Because they're all fascist. As a matter of fact, I just finished reading an article that so whatever, I don't know if that's an overlap, but if you guys remember, we talked about 50% of the Dallas police force belonged to that 488th Military Intelligence Organization. This one article that I just finished reading also said that 50% of the Dallas police officers were members of the KKK. It's probably a direct overlap, but I just thought that was funny. All right. So Neil Mallon has a direct pipeline to Allen Dulles. Cabell, the mayor of Dallas, has a direct line to Allen Dulles via his brother. And Prescott Bush noted in a letter around this time that Mallon was well known to Allen Dulles and has tried to be helpful to him in the CIA, especially in the procurement of individuals to serve in important positions in the agency. And Prescott Bush is George H.W. Bush's dad. Skull and bones. George de Morgenshield, he lucks out. He's been married 3 times, but his 4th wife is a woman by the name of Jean Ann. And Jean Ann has a very interesting story too. They lived near each other in New York City before they moved to Dallas. And they moved at exactly the same time. And they just happened to be like literal neighbors up there. And then supposedly they didn't know each other until they moved to Dallas, which is not true, by the way. But that's the story they tell. So Jean Ann, her real name is Eugenia Fomenko. She was born actually in China, just over the Russian line in China. And her dad ran the Far East Railroad for the Chinese government until it was sold to Russia in 1925. Fomenko was a spy himself working on the railroad. And Jean Ann had been on secret missions during her lifetime before she met George de Morgenshield. So she was somewhat of a spy herself. And she had a brother by the name of Sergei. She would later tell the Warren Commission that she and her first husband, Robert Legon, Legon, had fled Manchuria when it was under Japanese control because they feared he would be killed because of his knowledge of secret Japanese airfields that he had worked on. So he was working for the fascist Japanese. Eventually, they make their way to New York, where her brother Sergei was working. You can't make this shit up. Her brother Sergei was working on the Manhattan Project for Robert Oppenheimer.
Wow.
George de Morgenshield's wife, when JFK was assassinated's brother, was working on the nuclear program for Robert Oppenheimer.
That is wild. The other one that you had mentioned, Grinchfield, if I'm saying his name correctly, his first wife, Grinchfield, his first wife died in a car accident. Second one was a divorce, but the third one, she was a fellow CIA officer. It was Louis Matthews Grinchfield.
Yeah. It's a small world.
It is. It is.
Okay. So the first job Jean Ann had when she moved to Dallas. Now, she's never done this before, okay? She's basically done all kinds of weird things, but not this. She becomes a designer. And she happened to work at Nardis Sportswear which was owned by Bernard Gold. He's a Russian Jewish person who moves to Dallas. And again, Dallas is not the fashion scene. Okay. It's not even that big at the time. But he becomes one of the top fashion designers in all of Dallas by 1950. He's all the rage. And the designs that he is coming up with is being sold all over the United States. The store was shipping goods out on planes via, you're not going to believe this, the name of the airline, Slick, S-L-I-C-K, Slick Airlines. It was owned by Tom Slick. And where did Tom Slick serve on the board? Yes, you guessed it, Dresser Industries. And he's a good friend of Prescott Bush. Benny Gold knew everyone. He was the president of the Dallas Fashion Center. He threw huge parties all the time. When Jean Ann, who'd never been to Dallas, supposedly, from New York, moved there, supposedly she doesn't know anybody. Guess where she stays? In Benny Gold's mansion. Benny Gold, the fashion designer. Gold would join the anti-communist groups of Neil Mellon's Dallas Council of World Affairs, a CIA front, and he employed people with all kinds of interesting connections, almost like he was running a front. When Jean Ann designed clothing, do you know who cut out all of her patterns?
Who?
Abraham Zapruder, the guy that just so happened to take the Zapruder film. He was her partner in a fashion designing business that she had never been in. And he just so happens to have the only camera that took the critical video of the assassination. Just so happens. And they're all working for the guy that belongs to basically a CIA front.
Damn.
So
that's heavy.
All right, one last thing and then we can close. Because this is the thing that just sent me over the edge. And you're going to see why. In the 1950s, as petroleum reserves in the Southwest was getting exploited, they decided to start looking elsewhere. And they were looking throughout the Southern Hemisphere. So George de Morgenschildt, being the geologist that he is, always seemed to be at the right place at the right time. He happened to go to Cuba and was doing some work. Now, keep in mind, in the 1950s, Batista and the CIA owns Cuba, right? And the mafia. So where would George Morgenschildt go? Cuba with the CIA, because he's CIA adjacent. He later told the Warren Commission that he had left Buckley's Pantipec Oil in 1946 after a falling out with the company's vice president. Yet by 1950, he was actually working for the guy he said he had a falling out with in a new firm. So basically that was a lie, because he was still working for the guy later on. And the name of the new company that George de Morgenschildt started working for is called the Cuban Venezuela, not even joking, Cuban Venezuela Oil Voting Trust Company.
Come on. Come on.
I'm not kidding. So de Morgenschildt mentioned to the Warren Commission that the Cuban Venezuelan Oil Voting Trust Company had managed to obtain leases from Batista, covering over half of Cuba. He appears to have been telling the truth, because the Warren Commission's counsel, Albert Jenner Jr., did not even find this. He skipped right over it. What was interesting to me when I did my research on the Zapata Oil, which is the company of George H.W. Bush, there is a bay in Cuba that supposedly does have oil under it called Zapata Bay. And it was my summation that it was named Zapata Oil because they had a lease that George H.W. Bush was part of, that they were going to go drill in Cuba. And that's the real reason they wanted Cuba back, the CIA. The CIA was doing what they were doing in Cuba initially to get Cuba back because they suspected it was going to be as big an oil field as the one in Venezuela. And they had the concession to drill there. All of this clique in Dallas. Okay. This showed that George de Morgenschild was not a rogue operator. They tried to make him at the Warren Commission seem like he was kind of a nomad and couldn't keep a job and was kind of this derelict guy. This obviously illustrates that that is not the case. He was at the center of a major corporate effort involving many Americans' largest institutions, because wait till I tell you the kind of the foot stomper. Through the connections with the Batista regime, the Cuban Venezuelan oil company had managed to corner exclusive exploration rights to millions of acres on the island. Like all foreign businesses operating in Cuba, it had to work through Batista's dictatorship, and his kind of business guy was Meyer Lansky. He basically was representing all American interests on the islands. So they had to go through the mafia. The Cuban Venezuelan entity ends up, because of the overthrow, not amounting to much. And it's kind of like a footnote in history. But when it was created, it was the Wall Street darling. That's what it was referred to as. Because in the mid-1950s, it was one of the 4 or 5 most actively trading stocks on the American Stock Exchange. By November 30th, 1956, the New York Times had this announcement. The Cuban Standolin Oil Company, an affiliate of Standard Oil, Rockefeller, had signed an agreement with the Cuban Venezuelan Oil Voting Trust and Trans-Cuba Oil Company for the development of 300 million acres in Cuba. This is in addition to the original agreement of 12 million acres. So Standard Oil had an agreement to start drilling within 120 days. That was reported in the New York Times. This was apparently a big deal for oil companies like Standard Oil, which at the time had no foreign production at all until it went to Cuba. But the Cuban Venezuela Oil Trust was about a lot more than just Cuba. According to its filings, it had been formed in Havana in 1950 to assure continuity of management and stability of policy for shareholders of 24 oil companies in South America. The entire Latin America was tied up in this oil company. That it was basically a holding company with a focus on the stability of Latin America. And it was a big freaking deal. The Empire Trust Company, which was a New York entity that was tied to everybody, like the Rockefellers, everything, played a key role in financing the Cuban venture. Another item in the New York Times on May 14, 1956 said, election of Charles Leslie Rice, a vice president of the Empire Trust Company of New York, as a voting trustee on the Cuban Venezuela Oil Voting Trust was announced over the weekend. The Empire Trust, John Loeb, had a network of associates that amounted to its own private CIA, wrote Stephen Birmingham in a book called Our Crowd, The Great Jewish Families of New York. Empire worked hard to protect its foreign interests, and especially at stake in the defense contractor General Dynamic. Empire entrusted its affairs in Texas to Baker Botts, a law firm of Jim Baker's family. Jim Baker. Jim Baker is the guy that was in business with George H.W. Bush that created the Carlyle Group.
There's no way this stuff it's not happenstance, coincidence. This is there's no other conclusion that you can come to other than it's orchestrated. There's just,
Yes.
you can't.
Yes. So besides Rice, one of the Empire Trust directors was that Louis MacNaughton, a Dresser Industry board member, and MacNaughton is the employer of that Russian, white Russian George Boki, the number 2 guy in Dallas. And he's also the guy that introduced George de Morgenshield to Lee Harvey Oswald. So probably the most interesting part of it is the Empire Trust also had hired Jack Creighton, who was the longtime vice president who joined Empire in 1953. And he remained there until the early 1960s. And if you look up who Jack Creighton is, Jack Creighton had been hired soon after he left the military in 1946 by oil industry like bigwig Everett de Goyler. And if you look up, let's see, he became the go-to guy of powerful interest. He started and ran an array of companies that tended to change their names frequently, like the CIA always does. These operated largely below the radar and fronted for some of the biggest names in North America, including the Brofmans. And that Brofmans is tied directly to the World Commerce Corporation. If you remember, the guys who originally set up Permindex was the attorney to the Brofmans. So here you have another guy who is basically CIA adjacent. So who was all involved in this? The Brofmans, the DuPonts, the Cum Loeb family. Creighton would travel to the Middle East on oil-related intelligence business all the time. He was involved with George de Morgenshield in Cuba. And look up, let me, I'm going to show you something. Let's see. Here
If you guys haven't done so, do me a solid. Smash the thumb, hit the heart, leave a comment, and please share out this podcast. Go ahead, Connor.
So he is, you have to look him up. Creighton, originally from Louisiana, where Clay Shaw's from. He was a member of the OSS and good friends with Clint Murchison, part of the whole Dallas thing. And he's the guy that was the commander of the 488th Military Intelligence Detachment that basically had half of the Dallas Police Department working for him. Is that crazy?
It's insane. It's insane. It's all this, the little details too. The only video footage of JFK's assassination, the owner of the building. I mean, you look at all these things and they've lied to us about everything.
So also it should be noted that the Cuban Venezuelan Oil Voting Trust Company, William Buckley Sr. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I think we've talked about him before.
Yes, we have. William Buckley Sr. Is all involved in all of this as well. And a lot of the William Buckley family, CIA related, he was involved in setting up that Cuban Venezuela company.
Cuban, Venezuela voting. It's just like, come on now. At this point, you guys are just trolling us. Like you're trolling us with history.
So, and that's why I go back to saying this all the time. I've read the book, Final Judgment. I read it before I started doing all this Gladio research. That talks about, that's the book that was written that basically the CIA tried to have banned. And it didn't make near as much sense to me as all of this does now that I know about Gladio. Because once you understand Gladio and you understand how many of these entities, like that freedom thing, that the world freedom thing that was in Dallas, that you know that those are CIA fronts, it changes literally everything. So any of these people that are involved in it, all you have to do is attend one of these meetings and you have all of the players there, right? And it doesn't look like it's the CIA planning it, but in fact it is. And they're having these meetings. And
well, the one thing that Gladio has done for me is it's just okay, because I know I get people all the time, they're like, but how is it relevant to the now? And it's, look at the people that are in the positions of these oil companies or these NGOs now. Look at who those people are now. And then look for the events or relationships that they have that mirror the people that were the CEOs in those positions back then that were connected to these people. And when you see that event with those two people, and then you can bring it to the current day, this event with those two people, now you're like, okay, let me write down these names. And then you do the next person. And then you will naturally start to see, I keep seeing this guy and this guy and this guy over and over. And then you get to see what it looks like today. Now, granted, family ties and names are going to help a lot. But in the event that there isn't nepotism, that is how you're going to find it.
And what you see is only part of the story, because if you understand the organizations that these people are all members of, that's kind of the one thing that Warhamster Brady and I have talked about. What school did they graduate from? What organizations, what fraternities were they in while they were in school? What organizations do they belong to? Because those are the most telling things. And that's why I think it's hilarious to watch all these people kind of race down rabbit holes. Not that it's not important to have as far as confirmation, but I don't need to look at these Antifa funder organizations. I can tell you where they all go back to. I can tell you where all of this stuff leads to. I can tell you where the foundations are that were funding it. And no, it's not all just Soros. These people act like when they find the Ford Foundation or the Rockefeller Foundation or the Rockefeller Brother Foundations or whatever, like it's some big deal. No, we've known that since the 1950s. I don't have to do any of that type of, drawing this link diagram. I can tell you it all goes back to the CIA, because we've taken it back to the CIA like 50,000 times.
There's a reason Trump tried to buy them out, and he knew they would say no. He just wanted us to look at them a different way, because perception matters. We got quite a few Rumble rants that came in too, Colonel. So I'm going to bring those up on the screen right now, just in case any of them are questions for you. So first one, and wow, $100 from the Boom Diggity. Happy 100th, Gramps and Colonel. Here's the link for CMC's Israeli Ties article, and I copied it and pulled it up, and it is in Spanish, so I'll be translating that one a little bit later. So thank you for going and finding that, Boom Diggity. Appreciate it. And then following it up with $10 from the Boom Diggity. In the book, The Devil's Chessboard, Alan Dulles and Nazi friends used his World War II tenure as head of the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, in Bern to build a private, unaccountable network. And
so we did the Devil's Chessboard on my 4:00 show. We did it like 2 books ago. It is one of the best books we've done as far as names and details. That guy went through every like CIA operation and put the names of the operators and the CIA station chief. It was not a book that I could kind of paraphrase and go through, because every page of that book was vitally important.
Well, I will say this for you geniuses out there, including you, Colonel. If any of you have some specific questions about the OSS, send them to me, because I happen to network with somebody that was tied into the OSS, because the world is funny that way, and they're willing to provide me what information that they can talk about. So any questions that you think would be significant, send them my way. Will we find out the truth? We'll see. I just wanted to share that with you guys. That's a recent development. In case I disappear.
Ask him what he knows about Detachment A.
Another $100 coming in from SJ Taylor 11. Thank you both. I am grateful for all you do to educate us and help keep us informed. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for that support. Freaking awesome. $20 again from the Boom Diggity, just taking care of us tonight. I got the devil's Google to mention him. I search Tolstoy Foundation and Rogorsky AI event, a summary. The Colonel is speaking him back into the internet. And listen, the more you guys put in his name into the devil's search engine, it's the algorithm is going to pull it. They will try to find it to scrub it again, but you will bring it to the surface, because they don't technically delete it, they bury it. But if enough people start searching, it starts to populate back up there, and we make them do their work again. $20 coming in from the bread maker 62. Just love the Colonel and the fire she brings. Much love and many prayers to all. Semper Fortis. And that will take care of our Rumble rants. No super chats tonight, but shout out to everybody over there on YouTube that's watching and supporting. If you could do me a favor and please share out the content. And of course, whatever platform you guys are watching on, down in the description below, not only will you find the link to the Colonel's Gladio shop, but you're also going to find the link to the Colonel's channels, including the Rumble channel, where you can go and find everything Gladio, folks. Colonel, anything that you got coming up that you want to let everybody know about before we say goodnight?
4:00 every day, East Coast time. We're doing our book review. We're going to start a new book in a couple of days. And this book that it's called The Medusa Files, Alpha. I have never read a book that pissed me off more than this book. It is one of the, I'm just telling you, every time I can't put it down, it pisses me off every time. This guy was a police officer, huge background, and has put so many things together. It'll be a hard book to do, but it has to be done. It talks about the POW and the real story behind it, and who basically stopped us from finding out about what the real POW MIA situation. It talks about the anthrax vaccine, which affected me personally. And I'm telling you, I have been so pissed off every time I read that book. But that's our next book that we're going to do. And then War Hamster at noon on Friday, we're going to continue exposing the Fabian Society.
If you guys want to be months and months, if not more than a year or 2 years ahead of everybody, I suggest you follow the Colonel and get on it. So with that, you guys, again, do me a solid. The content is free. One of the things you guys can do to help us is, again, smash the heart, hit the thumb, leave a comment, and share. I'll catch you guys tomorrow morning on Badlands Daily at the early morning hours, and then Sit Rep tomorrow night, and then Overwatch and The Guardian after that. Me and Josh got a very fun show lined up for you guys. Definitely going to get everybody saying, whoa. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night. God bless.